because in a case from a few years back, it's the Madugo case from 2020. Fox News successfully argued that Tucker Carlson, one of their most watched shows on their news channel, I'm going to say news again, that Tucker Carlson is not, in fact, news. It's not a news show. It's an entertainment show. It is political satire. And that is because they argue that what Tucker Carlson says is so off the wall that it cannot be considered by a reasonable person to be truthful news. And they won this case. Tucker Carlson was let out of this case. It was a civil case for slander. He said it wasn't slander because what he said could not be interpreted by a reasonable person to be news. It's on the Fox News channel, the most trusted news source, the most watched show on this channel that posits that this is news, that Tucker Carlson is a news pundit that is commenting on news, but according to them, legally, it is satire. It is not reasonable for people to believe Tucker Carlson. And they won on that. So I question again, how does satire and comedy even exist in our world? When the, when the quote unquote news source that much of the country trusts doesn't consider itself news. It doesn't consider itself factual. It considers itself a joke. It considers itself funny and outrageous. How can people look at satire and know it's not real if even the most trusted news source that posts what it says as true claims that what they're saying isn't real? That it's a joke. It's funny. What becomes of satire in that world? I mean, you see it. You heard it from even the Onion during the Trump administration, that the writers from the Onion found it much harder to write satire, to write funny things, because the reaction of reality and politicians and even the public was as ridiculous as anything they could write.
Yeah.
Even so, I don't know if anybody's heard of Vermin Supreme.
I love Vermin Supreme.
Vermin Supreme is great. Vermin Supreme is this guy who has run for president for God knows how many years. I think he started running like during Clinton.
Yeah.
But he runs on an absurdist platform every time.
Yes.
And when Trump ran for president, Vermin Supreme actually admitted that it was much harder for him to run on an absurdist platform because of a lot of the quote unquote absurd things that he often talked about had become some of Trump's talking points. Reality has become so absurd that the absurdist was going, it's a lot more difficult now.
Yeah. Suddenly my absurdism doesn't seem so absurd.
So I don't know. Like, I feel like we're in a very weird place for. We're in a very weird place for comedy and satire. Like, it's very like I was saying earlier. A lot of comedy, a lot of the best comedy, comes from pointing out things that are difficult, things that are hard, and commenting on them, making them funny, making them easier to digest. But we've gotten into a world, not even a world, a popular culture where one, comedians have shifted a lot from actual observation to courting controversy. And satire, even parody, slips under the radar as because a lot of society doesn't see it as satire. They don't see the message. They just see what's there. And then the reality, like the political, socio-political reality of the United States has become so absurd that it's nearly impossible to separate from actual absurdity and satire. So what do we fucking do? Like, how do you exist? Like, how do we make comedy anymore? A lot of comedians go, well, comedy's dying because of cancel culture. Oh, no. Comedy's not dying because of cancel culture. Cancel culture is making it very stupid. Like, I will say that. And I'm not talking about accountability stuff. That's different. When I say cancel culture, I'm talking about specific stuff. I'm talking about people being ridiculous on the internet. It's making comedy really stupid. It's taking the value out. It's taking a lot of the value out of it. Not because it's making it harder for comedians to make jokes, but it's making it easier for comedians to bank off not making jokes.
Yeah.
Like, comedy is dying because it feels like we're losing the ability to discern underlying messages. We're like losing the ability to discern like real from the absurd, and it becomes very confusing. It's very good.
Without getting too much into it, the inability to discern underlying messages and subtext isn't just related to absurdity and the current
Oh no,
news, like that's without getting too much into it, that's also related to the attacks on public education and the ability to think critically that was once learned by a certain subset of the population, but is no longer broadly taught, if it ever was. Right? It's not broadly taught to be critical of the things that you consume. And so people aren't.
I would say it's not only not taught, but it's actively fought against. It's like like you're actively told not to think critically. That's and that actually kind of goes back to what I was saying about how people always go, how quote unquote shows are too political, especially when it comes to satirical shows. Like, X is too satirical. I mean, too political. But usually that happens when a show or a piece of media calls on the audience to think critically. As soon as you have to think about it, it's too much.
Yeah.
And secondly, that bar is so fucking low. The critical thinking bar is so fucking low that having a black person on the show can be that bar.
Yeah.
Like having
a trans person on a show is that bar.
Like any kind of person that is visible other than a straight white person.
Yeah.
That is damn near the fucking bar for critical thinking. Because if you have to acknowledge that other people exist and they have experiences, it's too much. It's too political, which is horrifying. But it just baffles me. I don't even have anything to say about like this topic. Like, usually I have some kind of, you should do this, we should think like this and do this and that. I don't. It's just an observation on things, and I know a lot of people are not gonna like it, but who likes half the shit I say here? But like, it's like literally just an observation of like comedy, and I want to be very transparent. I myself have done stand-up comedy. I currently do stand-up comedy from time to time, not very often to smaller crowds, but I have started doing it more and more now than ever before, and I've even discovered in myself as I'm trying to write jokes or make observations conversations, thinking, how am I going to do this? Not worried about, oh, am I going to be offending someone or this and that. It is, will someone get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Will someone get the message that I may be saying? Will someone even view this as a joke or a part of like a comedic thing, or will it just be taken in as real and actual? Because I mean, a good deal of my comedy is based on real life stuff, a lot of personal stories, uh,
Yeah,
told in an absurd way, but personal stories. Because my life is fucking weird,
it's
uh,
true.
and it only gets weirder. Uh, like once you get into eyeball licking, nothing's the same. I'm not into eyeball licking. Let me walk that back for a little bit. Other people have been into eyeball licking, people I know, but not me. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Sure, Keem. Uh-huh.
yeah. I got all other things going on. That's not even. Uh, but
You
yeah,
don't
like
have time to get into eyeball
I,
licking.
I I
You've
don't have
got
time
too
to get
much
into that.
else
That's
going
something
on.
else. That's too much shit. But yeah, so like this has a meaning. It's a more like it's a personal observation, group of personal observations for me as someone who is involved in comedy. Uh, uh, but as we close up here, um, I did want it to. I want to go back to Tucker Carlson for a minute, uh, because Fox News and they're positioning Tucker Carlson and even themselves as we're not news, we're entertainment, uh, we're satire. Well, that's come back. It has come back to bite them a little bit in recent months. So, in another recent case where Smartmatic, a company that makes voting machines, sued Fox News and Rudy Giuliani for defamation. Smartmatic suing for defamation Fox News over claims that their voting machines were used in fraud. Um, in this case, uh, a judge ruled that yes, Giuliani and Fox News did make claims without evidence or without any basis against the company, the voting machine company. In fact, they used the outcome in McDougal, where Fox News said that Tucker Carlson could not be considered news because they were ridiculous and could not be considered by a reasonable person to be news. So they used the ruling in McDougal to point out that Fox News has said that what they're saying is ridiculous and false and satirical. Therefore, these claims that they made about voting machines were baseless and factless, and you were positioning them as news when you knew they weren't, and therefore you did commit defamation. So the case they won in, the idea that Fox News, especially Tucker Carlson in particular, was satire, came back to bite them in the ass. And I think that is a triumph. Like that's what we can go home with today, is a triumph.
Yep.
Uh, Az, would you like to add anything?
No, I got nothing.
Um, I think that is going to be it. I did want to give a shout out to friends of the show, Cease and Desist, um, because they've been going through some stuff, but they are back doing shows with a new name, Cease and Desist. Um, and you should check them out. Go on Facebook. They're on Facebook, Instagram at Seize, SEIZE, and A&D, Desist, DESIST. Go check them out. They have given us music on the show. They have been a part of this show since early on, and I want to give them
Yep.
very much a big shout out going for it. Go check out their music.